All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the February 2024 public hearing and speak to council session. The meeting will come to order, and Deputy Clerk, City Clerk, Bridget Birch-White will call the roll.
Councilmember Gruber.
Here.
Councilmember Lightfoot.
Present.
Councilmember Lupian.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Councilmember Monroe.
Here.
Councilmember Patterson.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Vice President Harris.
Here.
And President Melendez.
Here. New York State law requires that City Council hold public hearings as it considers specific legislation. The clerk will open each public hearing, and anyone wishing to comment on the relevant matter may come to the podium at that time. After public hearings conclude, Speak to Council will begin. Speak to Council is a time for members of the public to comment on any and all matters relating to the city. Silence for this session closed at 4:30 p.m. this afternoon. The list of speakers can be found at the back of the room and in the hallway. Speakers discussing legislation on this month's City Council agenda are placed on the A list. Speakers commenting on all other matters are placed on the B list. Under City Council's rules, the clerk will call city residents first, since this is the Rochester City Council, and we first prioritize our citizens speaking to their elected representatives. As a reminder, the council is here to listen to all matters, and it is customary that we do not respond. Now let's begin this month's public hearings. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes at the podium, and the deputy clerk will lead us through each hearing. Deputy clerk.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter: authorizing the alteration of pavement width for the 2024 milling and resurfacing project, introductory number 43. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Seeing no speakers, that hearing is adjourned. That is the only public hearing for this evening, so we will now begin our Speak to Council session. All speakers will be given 2 minutes at the podium. We respectfully ask that each speaker offer council the same respect they would expect to receive in return. In doing so, please refrain from the use of profanity and other harmful language. Council members have the contact information for all of tonight's speakers and may follow up on any concerns that pique their interest. Deputy City Clerk Bridget Birch-White will call each speaker to the podium. We ask that you respect the time of those waiting behind you and yield the podium at the end of your allotted 2 minutes. So before we begin, I just want to thank all of you actually for coming out tonight. And I actually would like our council to give everyone a round of applause for joining us tonight. It's a big crowd. And in doing so, I just want to make sure that folks, I reiterate one point. We have a lot of speakers here, and we want to make sure we hear all of you, okay? And we want to make sure that also you are respectful of those who are at the podium. And it would be appreciative if everyone is given the opportunity to speak in their allotted 2 minutes to not delay the process. There is a chance that we might take a brief recess related to using the restroom, to be honest with you. So it depends on how long the process goes. So I just wanted to put those things out there before we begin. And I'll turn it over to you, Deputy City Clerk.
The first speaker is Michael Toome from the East District. He will be followed by James Harris and then Nate Walker. Is Mr. Toome here? Michael Toome? James Harris? Nate Baldo? To be followed by Sile Need Murchu.
Good evening. I'm here speaking as a member of the Rochester chapter of Jewish Voice for Peace to express my unequivocal support for a citywide ceasefire resolution. For months, I've watched in horror as the State of Israel, with massive U.S. military support, commits unspeakable atrocities against the Palestinian people. I'm additionally disturbed by the fact that my religion and my identity are being cynically manipulated to justify mass slaughter. For decades, Palestinians have lived under a brutal occupation that has involved humiliating checkpoints, home demolitions, targeted assassinations, and massive destruction of civilian infrastructure, including schools, mosques, and hospitals. The notion that this somehow will make Jewish people safe is absurd. You cannot kill your way to safety. I'm here to say to this body and to the Rochester community, not in my name and not with my tax dollars. As an American legislative body, this council can play an important role in joining other municipalities calling for a ceasefire resolution. 48 cities in the US, including our own state capital, have passed ceasefire resolutions. In particular, I urge this body to 1, call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, 2, support unrestricted humanitarian aid to safely enter Gaza, 3, support the return of Palestinians that have been displaced, 4, support an end to the apartheid and lift the blockade, the siege on Gaza and Palestinian land by Israeli military forces. I also further urge this council to recognize and affirm that criticism of Israel not be conflated with anti-Semitism. It's critical that we in Rochester be on the right side of history. Thank you.
From the East District, followed by Maria Andrews.
Good evening, Council. For over 4 months, we have stared in horror at the mutilated bodies of infants, bloodied and burnt, children with limbs ripped off, shivering and bleeding on the crowded floors of collapsing hospitals. We are witnessing the first live-stream genocide of our time. We will never forget the father who cried out while holding his dismembered child in multiple plastic bags, or the image of 7-year-old Cedra so full of color and life next to the image of her body, shredded and hanging from a building after the recent bombing of Rafah. Or 6-year-old Hind Rajab, who spent her final moments terrified and trapped in her car surrounded by her dead family members. Israel's strategic ethnic cleansing and campaign in Gaza has been clear from the beginning, starting in the north and moving southward with the sole aim of completely erasing Palestinians from the entire Gaza Strip. Israeli ministers, in their own words, have called for the displacement and the death of Palestinian men, women, and children, and the re-establishment of an illegal Israeli settlement in Gaza. Now 1.4 million Gazans have been pushed into Rafah, crowded in tents facing starvation and the spread of disease. And in the final, most dangerous stage of their genocidal plan, Israel is now dropping bombs on Rafah, advancing their ground invasion and targeting these displaced civilians with tanks and snipers. Collective punishment is a war crime. The use of white phosphorus in densely populated areas is a war crime. The direct targeting of hospitals and ambulances filled with the injured and dying is a war crime. These war crimes are being funded by this government using our tax dollars and weapons manufactured in this country. The US is driving this slaughter, and while the death count nears 30,000, ask yourselves how many is too many, 100,000, a million, the entire population of the Gaza Strip. Why are Palestinian lives less valuable? These are kind-hearted, talented, intelligent, resilient people with dreams and futures. The City of Rochester has the responsibility to oppose this continuing nightmare. And I implore you to use your voice to call for an end to these shocking massacres. You will contribute to ending this unimaginable hell that no one, let alone any child, should be subjected to.
Maria Andrews here.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Maria Andrews. I moved to the Rochester area about 6 months ago. I'm really happy to be here. This is the first city council meeting I've been happy to be a part of. I'm here to speak on behalf of the ceasefire resolution, and I could go on with the numbers. I could go on with the tragic stories that we are seeing, but what I want to share with you all today is how this has affected me personally. As you may have experienced yourselves if you've been in tune with the war crimes going on, I find myself scrolling through social media. One post will come up of a girl who's been killed by the Israeli forces, and then another photo will come up of what wedding dress should I try on? And then another photo will come up of people rallying in cities across the country. And then another photo will come up of my friend that just got engaged. The whiplash that we're experiencing here in the US of the tragedy of the genocide that we're funding, but then the joy that we're trying to experience as humans living under this imperialist system is really difficult to be present in our everyday going to work, coming home, trying to find peace within our family. And when I think about how this is impacting the people in Gaza, I cannot imagine. But I do think about the amazing friends that I met when I was teaching. I taught English in Malaysia in 2018. Malaysia is a predominantly Muslim community, and one of the conversations that I will never forget with one of the teachers was, "Teacher Maria, why do white Americans hate black people?" And I was like, okay, let's talk about this. And I had to explain to her our systems of oppression in the US and how that impacts other countries. And as I think about those conversations that I had in the past, I thought about, are they gonna ask me now, why do Americans hate Muslims? And when I asked my friend how she feels about what's going on, she said, it's not about Muslim, it's about humanity. So, thank you.
Kimberly Nelson from the East District, to be followed by Jennifer Sherlin.
Stories of Palestinians who have risked their lives or died for the benefit of others have inspired people all over the world to comprehend the apartheid that has been perpetrated on the Palestinian people by Israel for decades. There was Alma, who cried out from beneath the rubble to a journalist to please save her family first because she didn't want to live without them. That journalist has since been killed. So many journalists risk their lives daily, and more than 126 journalists and media workers have been killed in the last 4 months there. Just this week, we saw the female doctor, Dr. Amira al-Asuli, run through active sniper and drone fire to reach a wounded man. Then there's Ani Farhat, a young man who returned to Rafah during the truce, set up a team to bring trauma relief to displaced children there through music, storytelling, circus, and games. None of these people were or are legitimate military targets, though they may be killed any second. Every day, we can see that there is no military solution to end this war on Palestine. However, anyone or group who seeks to resist apartheid cannot be dismantled militarily. It is an ideology whose call to free Palestine is now heard and taken up worldwide. The possible path to peace is equal human rights for all in Palestine and Israel. No justice, no security. Apartheid must be dismantled and accounted for. Hostages and all detainees must be freed. The occupation must end. Palestinian statehood must be recognized. The first step to peace is permanent ceasefire. Call for permanent ceasefire now.
Jennifer Sherlin here. Joseph D'Urso from the East District, followed by Tierra Grayson.
Good evening. My name is Joseph D'Urso, and I speak to you as a citizen of the city and also on behalf of U.S. Senate campaign of Diane Sayre, who is seeking to unseat Kirsten Gillibrand in the November election. Today marks a day of great urgency. The eyes of the world are on the International Court of Justice at The Hague, which has heard the demand today filed by the Republic of South Africa calling for a ceasefire by Israel regarding the impending invasion of Rafah. The ICJ will likely issue a restraining order, but it lacks enforcement mechanisms. The matter will then go to the UN Security Council, where the United States has repeatedly exercised its veto power. However, with sufficient pressure from within the United States, we hope to reverse this. As of today, 50 cities have passed resolutions demanding a ceasefire, and I am asking that the City of Rochester join this movement for peace. South Africa, which has become the conscience of the world, has rightfully said, and I summarize, they, the people of Gaza, are being deprived of their right to protection from genocide under Articles 2 and 3 of the Genocide Convention by the State of Israel, which has refused to honor its obligations under that convention. Even though Israel is required by the ICJ to report back to the ICJ within 2 weeks, that is far too long to wait while the lives of 1.4 million displaced Gazans hang in the balance. And as Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu repeats, we're going to do it. As I previously said, 50 cities have passed resolutions demanding a ceasefire, and I'm asking that the City of Rochester join this movement for peace. Thank you very much for your attention to this matter.
Tierra Grayson. Alana Bowen. Followed by Justine Harris.
Good evening, council members. I am here speaking to you today as a Jewish member of this community and a representative of Jewish Voices for Peace Rochester. I am here speaking as a caregiver, a student of nursing, and a human being. I am here urging you to pass the ceasefire resolution. For the past 130 days, we have all witnessed the extreme violence in Palestine. I believe that since October 7th, Israel has been engaging in reactionary and murderous violence against the Palestinian people. The murder of innocent Palestinians has proven to do nothing to bring back the hostages or to garner sympathy for the US-backed Israeli war machine. Almost 30,000 people have been murdered. More than 10,000 children have been murdered. 1.7 million people have been displaced. These numbers are abhorrent. The violence against the Palestinian people is obvious and cruel. Revenge is not a Jewish value. I believe that none of this violence is justified, and it has never made me feel safer as a Jew. It is my moral responsibility as a Jew, as a caregiver, and as a human to condemn this violence and to call it what it is, a genocide. I am here today as someone who feels deeply the impact of this moment. I believe that we cannot spend one moment longer debating what the right thing to do is. This moment right now is when we must have a ceasefire. I'm calling on you, members of the City Council, to join in the growing calls for ceasefire now. The moment is now. We cannot wait one moment longer. Free Palestine.
From the South District, followed by Elizabeth McBrick.
Good evening, Flower City residents. They say talk is cheap, but most can't afford to speak the truth. Housing is a basic need. Housing is a human right. Everyone deserves safe housing. Without labels, safe neighborhoods. Housing is foundational to all other parts of life. Stability is foundational to improve public safety, which we really don't see here in this county anymore. Education, mental health, and stable employment. I speak from my own experiences due to unhabitable housing that I live in, and it has affected my family's well-being. Due to a system that is outdated and has failed individuals and families for decades. I stand here tonight with all who are here to ask the City of Rochester to opt into rent stabilization and to do a productive vacancy study for the city of Rochester and bring back rent control to Monroe County. It is time to step up to the plate and be current with everything that's going on when it comes to housing here. We need housing stability, and we need an anti-poverty policy intact for all families. Did you know there are 17 families that attend my son's school that are either homeless or facing homelessness, including my family? Something needs to be done about that. I remember when the city stood for thriving families because they believed in the communities.
Your time is up.
Remember, poverty pimps come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. These politicians will turn their backs on you. Stop thinking that they have our best interests or intentions. They don't. They work every day to build their bank accounts, now our communities. Have a great night. Thank you.
Elizabeth McBrick in the East District, followed by Robert McFarland.
Thank you for allowing me to come here. And just to begin where Justine left off, the city has we're seeing the prices of housing raise in taxes, which those expenses are going to be put on tenants who are already struggling with the prices and the costs that have gone up in renting an apartment. We see a number of people on DSS, Section 8, who cannot afford to find housing in this community because the prices are already too high, and it's beyond what their income can pay. And some of them are facing evictions and just the terror that goes with that. I know that personally. And I feel that the city has an opportunity. They have an opportunity to stop some of this that is happening, and it begins with City Council. City Council can stop the heights in the taxes. City Council can stop the rents by doing a vacancy study, the rents from going up too high by doing a vacancy study. By doing that, you decrease the stress that families are going through and the mental health and the mental anguish that brings to that family. Not only to them, but the generation after. When you talk about generational trauma, if my parents had to live in poverty, and then how am I going to be able to make it? Parents, children remaining with parents, even though they've kind of gone to college, got their education, but they can't afford to move out. So we see a change that's happening, so we need to do something about it to stop this for the community. We need a just tax rate. We need something for tenants, which is a vacancy study in place so we can stop the bleeding in our community.
Robert McFarland.
Yes, right here, thank you. Can you all hear me? Yes, good. 2 minutes, that's barely enough time to touch the tip of the iceberg. Actually, I should call it a volcano of hatred and disgusting violence that's being perpetrated on the people of Palestine and Gaza, especially in the West Bank. My title was Human Dignity and Morality. I don't know what's left in the world of that. After what I'm experiencing, 50 years ago, I stood in a federal court in the Southern District of New York before Judge Milton Pollack for resisting the draft. I was on trial. He said, "You have an opportunity here, Mr. McFarland, to end all this if you just join the military." I said, "No, thank you, Your Honor." This was in August of 1973, 50 and a half years ago. I said, "No, thank you. I'm not here to join the military. I'm here to continue my protests against an immoral, illegal war of genocide against the people of Indochina, not just Vietnam, but Laos and Cambodia that the war criminal Henry Kissinger perpetrated on the people of Cambodia and Laos. If you don't believe me, just watch one of Anthony Bourdain's past shows. So now, present time, this needs to go on the record. This is from months ago. Gloria Eland, former head of the National Security Council, quote, Israel needs to create a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, compelling hundreds of thousands to seek refuge in Egypt or the Gulf. As a result, Gaza will become a place where no human being can exist. And I say this as a means rather than an end. That is the opposite of human morality and dignity. And another quote from retired Major General Yitzhak Brick. Everyone understands that we can't fight this war without the U.S., period. November 23rd, 2023. Martin Luther King in 1967, April 4th, 1967, the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today is my government, the United States of America. End this insanity, declare ceasefire, get it together tonight, put that resolution on the record.
Nikki Cristoria.
Close, present quorum. Rochester, we have a serious problem. The Children's Agenda found that Rochester and Monroe County as a whole are experiencing a widespread financial stress, having profound effects and impacts on the children of Monroe County. There is a housing crisis. People cannot afford to live, to feed their kids, and yet you are all wasting our time and tax dollars on this bid? On a bid that will do nothing but harm small businesses. Where are our priorities? We need rent control. We need food security. We need you to call for an end to funding a genocide. We don't need private corps controlling our economy any more than they already do. We need our tax dollars spent correctly. We need you to do your job for the people of Rochester, not for the rich of Rochester. And yes, I'm here to urge you to call for a ceasefire. If this council were to do that, it would set a precedent that you hear us. Because while I stand here today and beg you to prioritize feeding the hungry and housing the houseless here in Rochester, I am begging you to show us that you value human life over profit. Show us that you have humanity. Show us, or the people of Rochester will show you the door.
Rufus Jones. Carl Giardino from the Northwest District, followed by Mercedes Vasquez Simmons.
I am here representing myself and law-abiding citizens of Rochester, whom are reminded daily of the dangerous living conditions we're forced to endure as residents in Rochester. We are fearful to walk, shop, even drive in our city, never knowing if we will be the next victim or statistic. Lawlessness and crime are on the rise, no matter how the mayor and city council paint it. While we pay the mayor a generous $146,000 plus annually, and each of you enjoys a $30,000 annual salary for your average of 20 hours work week, we rarely ever see any of you, including our mayor, touring our neighborhoods. We rarely see the police unless there's a shooting. You should all be ashamed of yourselves for the current state that our city is in. The streets and most of our neighborhoods are littered with trash. The condition of some homes and businesses within our borders are disgusting. They are vacant, boarded up, and in desperate need of repair and paint. I tour the city daily and am appalled, horrified, and outraged at the present-day conditions you have led us into. There is no sense of urgency in our city government to restore any quality of life, or law and order is only maintained without much help, if any, from our elected officials. Theft, robbery, assault, litter, noise, speeding, parking, hit and run, rape. It's never ending. If it's invisible to you, wake up. Get off your hands, listen to our concerns, come together and make a difference. Earn your salaries or move on. We're not going away, so listen to our concerns. Action is what we demand. Do your job. Review the calls to 311 and 911. Get engaged. Until next time, bye-bye. Ms. Monroe, don't forget about the parking on Stonewood Avenue, number 29, the bar. Thank you very much.
Mercedes Vasquez Simmons.
Underway.
Well, Ethelene Lawrence. Followed by Ray Bradley.
Yes, I'm here about the assessments, home assessments. It seems to me that we have taxation without representation. Because these are, you have churches almost on every block. You have nonprofits, and none of these are tax exempt. Then you have these developers who have a 4858 tax break, which allows developers to pay taxes on properties based on their initial value instead of the asset value once the project is completed. So that is, if they buy a plot of land, right, and they build on that plot of land, they pay taxes on the plot of land, but not on the building they built. And they getting rent and everything else. They making revenue and profit off of that building. But they only paying the initial value of the land. And that's not fair when we as homeowners, we got to pay market value. They assess our property at market value, okay? Not at the appraisal value, but at the market value, which it might not even sell for the market value, okay? So, and that's all I got to say. But something got to be changed, because that's I call that usury, okay? That's usury, and it's fraud.
Ray Bradley. From the South District, to be followed by Geraldo Wilcox.
Good evening, City Council and Rochester community. I'm here to talk about these high tax assessments that's just killing our community. I would like to say, how could the mayor we elected refuse to pause this assessment? He says he's for the people of Rochester, but he's always working with big developers. And this is part of the problem. People are leaving New York State for reasons like this, high taxes and government, only thinking of themselves. We may not have a big checkbook like the developers, but our checkbook is our vote. Remember this come re-election time. And in closing, if the city says my home is worth $336,900 in the city of Rochester on Troop and Ford, the mayor can buy it, or anybody else but his big developer friends. Thank you.
Geraldo Wilcox.
Can you let Mercedes go? She just got here. I second it. They did it last time. I'm for it.
Geraldo Wilcox here. Okay, then we'll go back to Mercedes Vasquez Simmons.
Good evening, and my apologies for being late. I had another commitment. I'm here for two reasons. The reassessment is very concerning to me, not because we know that it has happened, it's how it was rolled out. We have folks that are barely making ends. We have folks that have more insecurities now post-COVID And dropping this on the citizens of this city is just as unfair as it gets. We've elected you. We hope that you're listening to the voices of this evening. The plea of the people that ask you to please just put a hold on this plan. This also has an adverse effect. Not only are homeowners having to deal with the potential increase, but also this has a domino effect to the renters. Many renters are already being put on notice that their rent's going to go up $100. DHS isn't going up $100. They're not getting a raise for $100. So every month they have to figure out where are they going to come up with the delta. So that's one case. 133 Woodward. I'm putting that address on blast. That address has been a nuisance to this city for years. We need you, and I'm calling this address out, 133 Woodward, because the great people of Market View Heights have been a victim of neglect, and I'm asking you, 133 Woodward, we need your attention to this address. Every week, the police are called to that address. It's not quality of life. Just because you're poor doesn't mean you don't have rights, and you don't deserve quality of life. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Carol Thomas, Douglas Foley, Dr. Lisa Barr,
Well, I think you're all doing a good job, some of you better than others. So thank you for being public servants at a time when we need to remind Democrats to behave like Democrats so we can help Joe Biden snatch victory out of the jaws of victory. He's quietly reversed Reaganomics. I think he'll reverse the Nixonian right-wing creep on the Supreme Court and maybe even restore LBJ's war on poverty, the one that got derailed by the U.S. aggression against Vietnam. Were Governor Cuomo still in office, he would have the U.S. House now. Donald Trump's SALT tax scheme against blue states like New York for Hillary in 2016 would not be depriving New York of $2 billion a year. It would have been impossible then for me to hear the nonsense I've heard in the last 48 hours, first from a local public official on a right-wing station and then a Republican state legislator on a public station today about asylum seekers. Look, there's an international treaty. We have to help them. Don't entertain nonsensical claims that helping them hurts African Americans. That meme comes right when there are claims National Guard sexually abused asylum seekers in Buffalo. Don't pit disadvantaged people against each other. You're better than that. To me, the battle began when at the end of World War II, the fascists took the war from Europe home to America. Fossil fuel industry hijacked U.S. defense, transportation, and energy policies, fueling construction of those white flight suburbs. No surprise that a country stripped of its antitrust laws has a problem nationwide, with LLCs buying up even an elderly housing stock like Rochester's homes, built in the 1880s and 1920s, worth $500,000 only by using bad comparables. This reassessment is redlining. Remember, if minimum wage had kept pace with inflation, not national productivity since 1965, the minimum wage now would be well over $30 an hour. I'd like City Council to list which LLC owns which property and how much taxes they pay and to whose political campaigns they contribute. Thank you.
Linda Bauer, Joseph Dean, Marcia Steger, Alberta Peterson, Laura Turner from the Northeast District, followed by Clay Harris.
Good evening. I'm here to speak on the assessments. I live at 94 Evergreen Street, and this is very personal to me. I purchased the house I live in as a zombie property from the city in 2016. I used all my savings to bring the house under code without the benefit of grants and loans and return it to a viable part of the neighborhood. I paid for permits, which I thought would ensure that the work would be done according to city code, only to find out that the inspectors were negligent, and it was not. I found duct tape on my roof because the inspector said we don't go up on the roofs to do the inspection. I live on a fixed income as a senior citizen. I pay for grass cutting, leaf raking, snow shoveling, maintenance, repairs, taxes, and any updates to my property. If my property doesn't comply, I am given a violation and eventually a fine to bring it into compliance. The curbing on my street is worn down, uneven, and I am told not due for repair for 10 years. The street is patches with some paving. December 23rd, I contacted my neighborhood service center in regard to a homeless encampment in the lot next door to my home. The encampment plugged utility cords into my outdoor outlets, urinated in plain sight, begged for change, found bags of needles dumped in my trash, equipment removed from my backyard. There were brawls to which police responded and mental hygiene arrests made. Barn fire set, mounds of collected debris and rubbish was piled in the lot. The customer service inspector informed me the encampment had squatters' rights, having a legal right to be there, and the owners of the property lived 5 states away and used it as a tax write-off. I don't understand why the city allows that to happen. But I'm informed that I have a value 2.5 times of what my property used to be. What universe does that happen in when the quality of life deteriorates and your assessment goes up?
From the South District, followed by Sunshine Jacob.
Good evening, everyone. First, what I want to say is this tax reassessment is an injustice. It's violence against the people. This violence we cannot allow to stand. If you think we got a lot of violence in the streets already, just imagine when people can't feed their family anymore because they can't afford it, because their rent done went too high. Just think how much violence is going to be in the streets when people can't pay to keep their house and they don't got nowhere to stay. They're going to lose their house. I say this is violence against the people that must not stand. City Council, all of us must stand for the people. If we don't stand for the people and you're elected by the people, who's going to stand for the people? I say power to the people. I say power to the people. Can you say power to the people? It's power to the people. It's time to take the power back out of these bureaucrats. This assessor in his office is unelected bureaucrats, and they should not be allowed to collapse our real estate market and put people in the streets and they can't afford their homes. I was meeting with the superintendent earlier today. He says he has more homelessness in the families in the city school district than it's ever been in the history. Why do you think that is? Housing prices, they're going up. And we must stand for the people. Pause. 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 Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people.
Sorry, your time is up. Thank you. Sunshine Jacob. Colleen McCarthy? Colleen McCarthy. Okay. I'm here to take some. That's fine, take your time. Colleen McCarthy from the East District, followed by Peter Peters.
Good evening, City Council members and City Council President. Thank you. Good evening, City Council members and City Council President. I especially would like to thank City Council members Lightfoot, Lupian, Martin, and Smith for your letter to Mayor Evans. You asked Mayor Evans for a pause in the reassessment process. The mayor replied. He said no pause to the process. Why did he say no? He said no because he said it might hurt those whose property taxes could go down. The Democrat and Chronicle has something to say about that. Let's be serious. The people are not calling City Hall and the media to complain that their assessments are going down. The DNC reported the average tax assessment, reassessment, went up 68.4%. And that 68.4%, according to the DNC, translates to an increase of $3.2 billion. Wow. Billion, that's billion with a B, dollars for the city's revenue. Wow. I think $1 billion with a B in a city that has the outrageous level of child poverty and generational poverty that we have, billion of dollars deserve to give the mayor a pause, and it deserves all of us to get a pause in this flawed process.
From the East District.
President Melendez and council members, I am standing in solidarity with members of the citywide tenant union. We are seeking to bring about rent stabilization in our city, especially for those living on very low incomes. HUD determined that renters are considered rent burden when they pay more than 30% of their income on housing. U.S. Census Bureau reports over 70,000 households in Rochester pay more than 30% of their income to a landlord. A recent study reports since 2001, rents are 21% higher as of 2022. Meanwhile, renters' incomes have risen just 2% during the same period. To put this into more graphic terms, renter households earning less than $30,000 annually had an all-time low median residual income of just $310 a month. $310 to cover food, transport, and clothing? I don't know about you. I have experienced months when my mortgage payment was a challenge, but I have never, ever experienced the drudgery of a month-by-month burden that takes as much as 50% of my income, leaving me a daily struggle to make ends meet. This kind of monthly stress is no less than living with daily trauma. It should not be so in this wealthy nation. There is a solution that will free up 30,000 renters from such trauma-inducing way of living: rent stabilization. But before this can happen, there needs to be a new and carefully supervised vacancy study. I know you will tell me we did try this in 2021, but to be honest, it was poorly executed, and the situation for very low-income families has become worse. Let's be part of a reform movement and do something about it. You can do it.
Brian Acuff here? Carlos Santana? John Lindsay? John Lindsay from the East District, be followed by Lisa Coleman.
I am John Lindsay, and I live in the 18th block of St. Paul, and I'm a member of the Citywide Tenants Union. And as most of us already know, rent hikes are out of control in this country. So many of people are moving downward. All over this country, so many people are moving downward. Their status, their class in society is on a downward path, upper mid, to upper low, to homeless. Yes, homelessness. So, so many families are in a hopeless situation. So many people are seeing a demise, and when they are seeing a demise when they assess the quality of their lives today. There is a disconnect. This great disconnect is the disconnect between you, council, the mayor, and the landlords, and the LLCs, and whoever there be, must be regulated. So,
I'm sorry, so your time is up.
well, okay. The last thing I would like to say, we need to put a cap on rent. It would help so many people. It would bring some joy to Rochester. We can breathe a sigh of relief.
Lisa Coleman.
Good evening, City Council. I first want to start by echoing the calls that I've heard tonight demanding a ceasefire resolution for the Palestinian people. And I want to go into what I'm hearing tonight a lot about the housing justice concerns that are happening in our city. So I want to first thank many of you who have talked to us and are in support of passing the rental vacancy study in the next couple of months. This is absolutely essential to our communities. And I want to talk about how this is a racial justice issue. So in 1961, rent control was taken away from the city of Rochester by the governor because we had a great migration of black folks that came to this city. 1961, our demographics changed, the governor takes it away. The reason why I say this is a racial justice issue is because Brighton, Irondequoit, and Greece didn't have rent control taken away for 12 more years because that their populations weren't reflecting that same demographic shift that we saw in the city of Rochester. In 1974, the Emergency Tenant Protection Act was passed to allow for rent stabilization in New York City. And in 2019, the citywide tenant union and other members across the state fought because us in upstate deserve that rent control too. So I am here tonight saying that this is a racial justice issue that City Council can act on. We can do the vacancy study within the next couple of months to start this process to opt into rent stabilization. And I'm just really thankful for the opportunity to be in front of you today and for those of you that we've had the chance to talk with about your support. Thank you.
Maggie Kane, Dave Sutliff Attias. East District.
Hey everyone, I'm Dave Sutliff-Attias, and I'm here to talk to you about housing. But before I do, real quick, we need a ceasefire resolution yesterday. Please put this bid out of our misery, and there's got to be somebody in this building smart enough to figure out a way to increase our bond status. That's not on our backs through tax assessments. There's got to be somebody in this building who can figure that out, right? If not, we'll help. So just I thought I'd throw that out there. So housing. Some of us have been coming before you for years, some decades, and I'm not calling anybody out, to talk about why we need our government to take housing and look at it as a human right. And we're not doing that. We haven't done that, and we haven't come close to it. And you got people coming up here and talking about crime and talking about poverty and talking about, not so much tonight, but the city school district. We know most of these things center around housing. How many homeless students do we have? How many people on the streets who are, if they have housing at all, it's not stable. And it creates a lot of tension and problems in our community. So here are a few solutions, some things for you to do to fix this. First of all, as people are saying, we need this vacancy study, and we need it done without the landlords torpedoing it like they did last time. Some of them were blatantly saying they're not going to follow the directions of it. They messed it up. Secondly, you also need to stop using AMI as how we decide what affordable housing is. We need to use the city's median income. You keep including these suburbs and it skews everything, and $1,400 a month is not affordable. We know, we've been coming to you for years with this. You know this. This isn't new information. You got to act on it. Well, my time's up. You know I can be here all night with this. Start doing this. Thank you.
Kelly Cheadle from the East District, to be followed by Ms. Madeline Santana.
Good evening, Council. As you know, the RDDC has completed their community engagement process. In December, the community was given 1 month to review their draft plan. In the RDDC's own tabling at residential towers, they report that the majority of people were not aware of the bid. Honestly, it is cold comfort to see our concerns about a lack of community awareness validated in their own documentation, especially in light of our housing crisis and all of the beautiful people here tonight who are talking about housing instability and the need for rent stabilization. Recent research shows that evictions lead to a 40% increase in mortality rates. Last year, we had over 5,000 evictions. Housing instability is killing us, literally. Meanwhile, these tenants, including the tenants of low-income housing, are not even aware of the bid effort or how their landlords were going to pass those bid fees on to tenants. The biggest landlords will dominate the structure of the bid, and they will drive decisions and priorities. Tenants will have no recourse. They will have to pay or be on their way. The community should not have to wait to find out about what's going on until they get an eviction notice. There are two major issues that have led us to this point. One is having the RDDC be responsible for doing community engagement and education on a policy that they stand to benefit from directly. The other is the lack of community transparency and accessibility to these Speak to Council sessions. Local media coverage has been decimated by mergers and private ownership. Speak to Council sessions should be live and available through city channels, just as it was during the beginning of the pandemic and just as other hearings are now. Today's session will be available to the public, and it's live right now thanks to the nice folks at DSA and all the other ones who pooled their funds together to make it happen. But this should be the city's priority and the city's responsibility. We deserve to hear all of these voices speak out and join the chorus to stop the bid, ceasefire now, support public power, and fund the vacancy study. It's only 50 grand.
Good night, everyone. My name is Ms. Madeline Santana. First of all, thanks everyone for being here, fighting your own, individual fights. It takes a village, and we are the village. So my concern here is 133 Woodward Street. I am the next door neighbor to that property. I'm a homeowner, by the way. I have a son with an IEP too. April 2023. That's the day that has been going on in the situation, incidents happening over and over in this address. Big fights, loud music at night, different people in and out. The whole upstairs apartment being destroyed, all windows are broken and shattered. Police, in less than a year, has showed up in the house more than 10 times. This is almost every other week a problem, a fight, people coming in and out. I have contacted the property owner, also the landlord, by email, by mail. Only one time he responded to me. I'm sending him pictures of all the times the police have come, pictures of all the house being destroyed, and nothing is getting done. All he answered me back was there was an eviction in process, and this has been happening since April 2023. My biggest worry is that different people come in and out, and there was a young guy who was caught over the summer responsible for the murder of a man on Wales Street. And guess what? He was staying in this property on 133. How I find out? Because I see it on the news and I recognize his face. I am a homeowner, taxpayer also, and I have a family. I love my family. I don't want to leave my house. I refuse to move out because I believe in my neighbor. But people like this, something needs to get done. And I also went to the net office, and the response was that I needed to go to the public safety building to get all the police reports. What am I supposed to do with that? What am I supposed to do with that? Please, I'm begging you, please check this 133 Woodward Street address. It's a safety problem for the community. Please, I'm begging.
From the East District, to be followed by Marisa Jadisi.
Good evening. I'd like to start by acknowledging some of the accomplishments of this council, both personal and political. All of you have overcome many struggles to get where you are today. And I think that it would be such a shame for your legacy to be, I worked so hard, I came so far, and then I supported a genocide and screwed over my community. I don't want that, and you don't want that. We are not asking for a lot. We are not asking you to watch your friends and family die. We're not asking you even to contribute financially. All we're asking you to do is say, hey, murdering innocent people, we don't support that. The bare minimum. I truly believe that you guys will call for a ceasefire because that is what many leaders across the world are doing. But until you do, I want you to remember that every time you watch a superhero movie with your grandchildren or read the newest dystopian novel, you are exactly behaving like the villains in those stories because you're ignoring your community who are begging you to just call for peace. Finally, I'd like to remind you that our tax dollars pay your salaries, and we are keeping notes. We are taking notes and keeping track. Okay, thank you. And please support your community. Homelessness is not acceptable. Housing is a human right, and food is a human right. Thank you.
Marisa Jadisi from the Northwest District.
It's been 4 months, a total of 132 days, and we are still asking for a ceasefire. Rochester has its own history with standing against apartheid. I ask, what is the difference now? Local anti-apartheid movements took place in Rochester in the 80s, significantly Kodak pulling their products from South Africa and the U of R divesting from them as well. Support from communities all over the world helped to put pressure on ending apartheid in South Africa. We need to do the right thing again and stand up for the people of Gaza. They are suffering every day. We need to be the voice for them and not just watch them suffer in silence. All eyes need to be on Rafah right now. The most recent atrocities taking place at the hands of the Israeli government are happening there. Over the last 4 months, Gazans were told to move south where they will be, quote, safe. People have been displaced time and time again, walking by foot to make it as far south as they can get, to Rafah. Now, Israel is saying that Rafah is no longer safe, dropping leaflets telling people to leave, but not where to go. They must leave because their life depends on it. This has been the agenda of the Israeli government the entire time, to push 1.4 million people into Rafah and tell them if they don't leave, they will die. There is nowhere to go, nowhere in Gaza is safe. How many more martyrs will be enough for you before you decide to call for a ceasefire? Is over 28,000 dead not enough? Your silence is killing innocent lives every day. It is ignorant to not call what is happening a genocide, and history will remember those who stood up against these atrocities and who decide to remain silent. We need a ceasefire now, because no one is free until we are all free.
Todd Singletary. Cassandra Christian from the East District, followed by Myrna Ramirez.
Good afternoon, evening. I'm here just to ask if they would pause and just take a different look at what's going on here with the assessment. And know that there are elderly people who live alone. Some of them don't even open their mail. And their family members don't come by, and they don't know what's in the mail. And I believe there's a lot of them that don't even know they got an assessment. And that bothers me. I've worked with elderly people over 50 years. I've been in and out of home care. But I really don't think this is fair, and I think they need to really pause it because it's just too rapid, too quickly, and a lot of people still don't know. And I've had family members that I've talked to and say, oh, do you know about this? Oh, my kids are taking care of them. You know, and I'm not pointing out black families, but a lot of them, their kids are just in the house and they're not doing anything to help them. And those people are in my neighborhood. And it's really sad that, you know, all this is going on. And I'm just asking, I don't do this at City Council often, but I am here to ask if you could just do something, you know, 6 months, something, to let other people know what's going on. I don't believe everybody really knows and understands. Thank you.
Myrna Ramirez from the East District, followed by Amanda Smith.
Good evening, everyone. I moved here to Rochester in 1992. I was homeless. I lived in my vehicle for 2 years. I lived on an abandoned building, and I also lived on a roof. Fast forward to today, I am a homeowner who is also being affected by this reassessment. My home is being reassessed at 3 times of its worth. I've even had a realtor come in, and it's nowhere even close to the numbers that the city is providing. And it was all by a curbside assessor. Our neighborhood has lots of crime, and as a community, we try and look out for each other, as well as the rest of the homeowners on our street, so when we see something, we say something. And I remember the day the city assessors came, and they were in their vehicle, did not even get out. They were looking down the driveways, looking at the front of the house, and then moved on to the next one. I was ready to call the police, but this was a vehicle that I did not recognize. And as I approached the vehicle, there was a sign that said City Assessor, and I said, that is a shame. It really is a shame. Several years ago, lots of individuals have made mass exodus out of Rochester, as it has become, I believe, unaffordable for owners to stay when other states are more affordable to live. I believe that the mayor, if he continues to move forward with these issues, it will result in another mass exodus. I'm sure that's not a goal that Rochester wants. I would want to believe that they would want to see more folks coming in from different states and places in our country to reside here. I do not qualify for assistance of any type, as I am above the federal poverty guidelines, as I'm employed. However, I am a single owner-occupant of my home that still requires lots of work and surviving in my home check to check with increases in literally everything resulting from this pandemic. And it has caused people like me, to decide whether I purchase food with what's left over in my paycheck or put money in my vehicle to remain employed. I am urging the City Council
to help resolve these issues so that those of us who love Rochester, love our homes, can continue to stay.
Is Amanda Smith here? Amanda Smith is from the South District.
If it helps, Dean is under me. I think we got flip-flopped.
You skipped a lot of people.
45 was next.
You skipped a lot of people. You skipped a lot of people.
It's, excuse me, I can explain what's going on.
I didn't skip anybody.
Okay, he is under my name. I signed us up at the same time, so I think there was just a swap.
Do you wish to speak?
Sure.
Give her 2 minutes.
We're giving her 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Real quick, housing is a human right. Pause the reassessment. It's not fair. We need rent stabilization and no bid. I'm here primarily to ask that you represent your constituents by passing a ceasefire resolution in an effort to stop the Israeli genocide of Palestinians. In a country that is turning a deaf ear to the calls coming from the majority of Americans, it is incredibly important to me that you all, as my first line of representation, call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. We have all seen and spoken of the horrendous deaths as Israel has and continues to kill Palestinian men, women, and children in the most violent ways. But I'm asking you to consider not just the death, but the life. Nearly 30,000 people are dead, but 1.5 million people are still alive in Rafah alone. That's a lot of life to fight for. Every day, I check my phone for signs of life, and I find so many. I see grandmothers who are single-handedly caring for a number of children, laughing with journalists as they try to make light of the situation. I see children and young adults who have lived through multiple displacements and still carry their beloved cat in their arms, saying, "When I left home, I took nothing with me except my cat. I love her more than anything." I see children playing volleyball and flying kites among the tents. I see children smiling and singing and then scattering with screams as a strike occurs nearby. I see children talk about the dreams they have for themselves and what they miss the most. I see fathers caring for the child of a stranger they will never meet as if they were their own. I see mothers making homes out of any materials they can find. These people are human, they are beautiful, and they are still alive. That's why I need you to do everything you can to call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and ultimately an end to the occupation. Free Palestine.
Dean Yancer, you here?
Yes, ma'am.
Dean Yancer from the South District, to be followed by Mary Coffey.
19th Ward, baby. So, good evening, folks. I'm here to talk to you about the fact that there are 2 million people, 10 times the population of Rochester, squished into an area smaller than the size of Monroe County. Pushed there by a government they had no representation in, who decided that their homes belonged to someone else. Then, the freedom fighters began to try and fight back. And so Israel began dropping bombs. Tons and tons of bombs. 10 times what we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Tons. And then these people are now squished into a refugee camp in the south where Israel told them to go. And now they're dropping more bombs on people, human people, that we just heard beautiful stories about. And this city council can't even bring themselves to ask them nicely to stop. You can't even say, please stop killing the people. The bare minimum. The bare minimum. I should be here talking about how my house got reassessed and wondering how I'm going to continue to live there, despite what I thought was a great job. How you guys are sitting here as the city of Rochester becomes a picture in a dictionary next to gentrification. The people of Gaza are humans, they deserve to live. The people of Rochester are humans, they deserve a place to live. And it is your job to ask for Gaza to stop and to find a place for the people of Rochester to live. Thank you.
District, to be followed by Jonathan Cooley.
I was going to speak on the reassessment, but I think we had some very, very good coverage there, and I want to thank Willie for stepping forward. And I'd like to thank Clay Harris, who has been a wonderful advocate for the people of Rochester. He also led the Stop the Violence marches in Rochester and is also leading this movement. So thank you, Clay, too. So what I'm going to speak on is our schools. Right now, East High School has been taken by, they want to take away their connection with the U of R. It's been very successful. It's a school in my neighborhood, and years ago we went to the mayor at the time, Mayor Tom Richard, and we went to Malik Evans and Jim Shepard because the citizens of Northland Village said the children were running all over the neighborhood. They were doing drugs behind the buildings. I went to East. I said, something has to be done. I was told, well, too bad, too many doors and we can't watch them. So that's when we went to our people in government, like Willie, that would step forward. And they got the state to step in and turn that school around. And the U of R came in. Now, they want to take the money away, too much money. I ask, what is the price of a child's mind, and what is the price of getting a child the ability to get out of poverty in Rochester, New York? Oh, that was...
Jonathan Cooley from the South District, followed by Joseph Mack.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Khoury. I am with the Rochester Committee to End Apartheid. For the past 4 months, I have witnessed the unfolding genocide against my people. I have watched the successful ethnic cleansing of my brothers and sisters in Gaza, as the Israeli government has encouraged them to go to the only safe place in the Strip and prepares now for a ground invasion, which would devastate the 1.5 million people that are on a plot of land as big as the Heathrow Airport. I have grown weak. I have grown tired. I have grown fearful. Every day I experience pain that is unlike anything that my siblings experience overseas. And coming in here today, I felt all of that culminated. And the only thing that keeps me strong is listening to your constituents, listening to what the residents of Rochester are asking for. Yes, a ceasefire, but also for the thriving communities from New York to Gaza. Your constituents, these city residents, want to see this city thrive, and they want to see Palestinians thrive. I know that you all are not in the positions you are in because you don't like Rochester. I know you all care for this city. And I know that you all can hear us. I just ask if you will listen. What we want is no bid. What we want is a pause on the reassessment. What we want is housing stability. What we want is a vacancy assessment. And what we want is a ceasefire now. Thank you.
Joseph Mack here. Joseph Mack is from the Northeast District. He's followed by Melton Otumtumur.
My question to you is, what are you doing to support rent stabilization here in Rochester? Because what I see, you're not doing anything. You know, I mean, what are you doing to help the homeless here in Rochester? There's 27,000 plus homeless people in Rochester. What are you doing? You know, I mean, what are you people doing? You know, There are people that are out here going hungry, you know? I mean, what are you doing? You don't care about our community. That's very clear. You know, come walk the streets and talk to the people that are actually living out here. Because you don't care. All you care about are the people that are lining your pockets. And I really don't have much more to say. You need to do something to change our community. And you clearly don't give a shit. I'm appalled at you people, to be honest. What you do to, what are you doing to help our community? You're not doing anything. I don't have anything else to say.
I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your last name, but Melton Otuntumer, are you here? Gretchen Eddy, followed by Abby Lupi.
Hi, my name is Gretchen Etley, and I've been a volunteer at Rochester Animal Services since 2017. I'm here today to share some of what I've personally witnessed and learned, which is a lot. Our city is home to many families who include as one of their family members their pets. For many of these families, access to food and medical care is a challenge. It's the same for access to food and medical care for their pets, a challenge that Rochester Animal Services is helping them to overcome. You may have heard, about 6 weeks ago, the shelter was battling an outbreak of a deadly virus, parvo, with the dogs. Staff, volunteers, foster caregivers, and rescue groups all pulled together and turned the situation around. There was good media coverage of what we were dealing with, and that got the word out. When our outreach staff, Amy and Rachel, next offered a free vaccine clinic for city residents, the line filled the entire parking lot. Over 112 family pets were vaccinated, and these families were protected from the heartbreak of losing their pet to a deadly virus. 2 weeks later, another free clinic was held, and 86 more families attended. These were long and busy days for those staff and volunteers, but well worth it. Our city families care about their pets, and we were there for them to help. Our city is home to families who may be struggling with food insecurity. I guess you've been hearing a lot about that this evening. We don't want those families to have to give up their pets because they're dealing with this and other housing issues. By partnering with FoodLink and other sources of donated pet food, we've operated bi-weekly pet food pantries for city residents. Last month alone, we distributed food for 145 families, helping 545 pets. In case you haven't noticed, I'm here to highlight some of the good things that Rochester Animal Services has been doing for city residents and their pets. I'm proud to be a volunteer. Thank you for your time.
Abby Lupi from the South District, and will be followed by Alana Bowman.
First of all, thank you to everyone for speaking on Palestine and the housing crisis tonight. Really appreciate it. My name is Abby Lupi, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and the BID Education Committee. This is an open letter. Esteemed members of Rochester City Council, we, the undersigned businesses and property owners, are sending this open letter to express our concern with the current push for a business improvement district, or BID, in downtown Rochester. We feel that the public, including many street-level businesses in whose name the bid is being proposed, have not been adequately informed or consulted about both the pros and cons of a bid structure or about possible alternatives to an additional tax district that would result in increased costs for downtown businesses. In addition, we were not adequately engaged about the draft district plan during the formal feedback process, which concluded in December after a narrow 1-month window, and which did not afford a meaningful opportunity to voice questions and concerns in a neutral forum. In summary, the proposal for a downtown bid that will soon come before Rochester City Council is the product of a flawed process and does not reflect the informed consent of the public, including the undersigned stakeholders whose businesses and properties are located within the footprint of the proposed bid. For these reasons, we urge Rochester City Council to reject the proposed district plan and to commit instead to a transparent, evidence-based, and inclusive process for envisioning the future of downtown. Sincerely, Animata Studio, Aquavite, Pronuncio, Uptown Music, Big City Deli, Bitoa, Capacity, Cepeda Insurance, The Daily Refresher, Divers Mosaic, Flower City Station, Frank's Chop Shop, The Greater New York Revitalization, Greenwood Books, Joey's Legacy, Wine Bar, Love Hate Tattoo, Lavetro Automotive, The Op Shop, Salingers, Skylark Lounge, Pastime Skate Shop, The Richmond, Rochester Contemporary Art Center, The Spirit Room, Stromboli Pizza, Temple Bar and Grill, Ugly Duck Coffee, The Union Stop, UUU Art Gallery, Venito Pizza and Pasta, and Rock Happenings, and many additional property owners. Thank you.
Dwight Robinson. Dwight Robinson is from the East District.
Hi, everybody. I'm here to talk about the reassessments, and I would like a pause on the reassessments. At first, I started this dispute process as a homeowner. I own 3 homes, one in North Winton Village, one in Swillburg, and one in Upper Monroe. And the amounts that they went up, one went up by 132, one went up by 124, and one went up by, an assessment, by 20,000. Altogether, it raised my taxes by a total of $1,300. I started coming here for myself, but then when I went to some of these meetings, I saw people that looked like my mother, who lost her house in Sullivan County and fought assessments back in the 80s, lost her house due to taxes. We owned the house and we lost it from taxes. Fear and pride kept her from asking us for help. And by the time we got to help her, it was $30,000, and none of us had $30,000 and buy a house. So, all of you, whether you rent or you own, you're gonna pay the taxes. The landlord is not gonna eat the taxes for you tenants. The owners, these pills are too big to swallow. We can't swallow it. What am I asking City Council to do? Please, you are the checks to the mayor. Checks and balances, we need you. We need you to go to the mayor and say, we need to pause this and look at a better way. We can't go up 68%, that's unprecedented. It's gone up 25% at times, it's gone up other times. You can't roll out information to neighborhood associations, because when you go out to those neighborhood associations, there's one person talking until people stop listening. They're not getting information out. Thank you.
Dr. James. From the East District, followed by Robert Rogalski.
My name is Jamela James. I'm a board member of the National Lawyers Guild of Rochester and a Juris Doctor. The Guild is the nation's oldest and largest progressive bar association. We ask for a resolution in favor of an immediate and permanent ceasefire. Israel has committed countless violations of international law for decades, including its illegal occupation and denial of civil rights to the Palestinian people and military blockade of Gaza. Notably, Israel is in violation of international law, which requires warring parties to take all feasible precautions to minimize harm to civilians and civilian objects, such as hospitals. Israel's retaliation against the Palestinian people is a form of collective punishment, which is a war crime. Israel is ignoring its legal requirement as an occupying power to make sure the basic needs of Gazans, such as food and water, are met. Instead, Israel has cut off aid to Gaza while the population starves, yet another war crime. The International Court of Justice recently, as a result of South Africa's case against Israel under the Genocide Convention, ordered Israel to take all measures to prevent the killing or serious bodily or mental harm against the Palestinian people, which Israel is refusing to do. Meanwhile, Israel continues to enjoy generous U.S. aid while our own people locally struggle with food and housing costs. Check out the West Side. As a community of legal workers, we understand the personal and professional risks associated with standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people. Yet we do so anyway. We cannot, as people of conscience, refuse to act in the face of genocide. We therefore implore the City Council to act with courage and conviction and stand in opposition to ongoing violations of international law and crimes against humanity by passing a ceasefire resolution yesterday.
Yes. I think one thing you guys need to ask yourself, are you going to be seen as ineffectual? Because when I told people I was coming up here tonight, that's what they said to me. Why bother? They're ineffectual. They don't do anything. They won't listen to you. And to be honest, the last time I came here and talked about the bid, I was ignored and condescended to. I don't like coming up here. I'm not an activist. Most of these people here are coming up here because they need something to change in their community. A bid is not it. I don't think you're villains in some superhero movie, although I think some of you might be more like the mayor in Jaws. That doesn't know what a shark is until it, well, anyway. There needs to be change, and clearly that needs to be there. Constantly giving everything over to large property owners, tax breaks. We do not want to subsidize their properties anymore at the expense of us. We're tired of it. Do you want to be, remember Mayor Johnson? What do people remember him for? The fast ferry. That's what everybody brings up. Not any of the good things he did. They always bring up the fast ferry. Is that what you want to be remembered for? Something like that? I doubt it. All we ask is that you do something, or at least get caught trying. That's all we want. It's amazing also that our country could always find billions to fund wars. But if we want health care, nope. If we want better housing, nope. If we want our freaking streets fixed and cleaned, nope. We're asking you now, here, not the suburbs of Rochester. No, I don't care what happens in the suburbs. Do something here.
Larry Lane here. Alexander Phoenix, yes. Okay.
Like the bird. Good evening, Council. I am here to urge you to unanimously and immediately call for a pause in this property tax reassessment in Rochester. And I also support my brothers and sisters who are calling for a pause or a cease in the genocide of Palestinians. So it appears to me that the city has failed to ensure a fair and equitable assessment of all the properties in the city. It is engaging in market manipulation. It has placed a series of inequitable burdens on all of us. Your law even boasts of this burden, claiming the reassessment is presumed correct, and it is our burden to prove to your appraisers, real estate brokers, and lawyers why they are wrong. It appears that the real estate brokers cannot give unbiased opinions of assessment increases because these brokers benefit by increased commissions when the property values go up. The Lawyers Bar Association receives tax exemptions, so how can a member of this organization give an unbiased opinion or legal advice of property value? Why is the city using state real property law for its tax reassessment, yet uses archaic local municipal laws to seize properties at its pernicious in-rem property tax foreclosure auctions? They are not even auctions. They are just side hustles where the city is allowed to bypass auction rules and transfer the tax delinquent property to the Land Bank Corporation for pennies on the dollar. This is neither an arm's length transaction nor a non-arm's length transaction. This is the most nefarious form of government malfeasance that exists. The tax delinquent homeowner is horrifically punished by not being allowed to recover any surplus funds created by a fair market auction. Why are these sales not published in the recent sales viewer or the prop info on the site?
Your time is up.
Thank you. Also, please stop demolishing properties. We can fix them up. Thank you.
Agape Towns. Agape Towns. Jonathan Ayala. That's
Help her out.
Hi, I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm here to demand a ceasefire, which is the bare minimum. It's your job to represent us, and the American public is disgusted by the shameless acts of our own elected officials who continuously fund the genocide and ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people on our dime, all while feeding us propaganda that's insulting to even assume we fall for. Palestinian hostages, who media refers to as prisoners just to further dehumanize Palestinian population, have been tortured, raped, and murdered. Children and babies are being blown up into pieces during these constant carpet bombings. People's entire bloodlines are wiped out by Israel with your complicity. Palestinians are made refugees on their own land and then carpet bombed some more with your complicity. We're all seeing this genocide in real time, you as well as the rest of us, and we're seeing the complicity. Stop wasting money on idiotic propaganda. Grow some courage and stand up against genocide. You should be ashamed that people have to beg you to stop killing people and stop killing children. Where is the democracy? International law? How about an ounce of humanity? How can you go to sleep knowing you're fully funding a genocide? Have you no shame, no integrity or morals? Do you just hope the public forgets? Because we will never stop and we will never forget. So do better or step down, because you're making history in the most horrific way possible. And also, speaking against the basic ceasefire is despicable. It's a despicable and evil thing to do, speaking against a ceasefire.
Sharon Cole's here.
Right here.
Okay. She's from the East District and will be followed by Mary Adams.
I'm here to talk about the assessment. My father bought his house in 1962. He paid $13,000 for it. Now it's called a historical area. It's called Cornhill area. We got one house that caused us to raise our assessment. One house in the Cornhill area. Now they got the mortgages. Now they're calling for, they want to get the shortage up front. So now we got a mortgage shortage coming up because they want to tax you $2,700 onto your mortgage because it's going to be, they're estimating that it's going to be a shortage. They're estimating that the tax is going to be higher. They're estimating that the insurance is going to be up. So on top of the estimate, my house was $190. They want $339,000 now, which is outrageous. And you've got people that's working in the houses doing stuff, and like they said, they're coming in, buying the houses up. I can remember when the houses, all these houses in Cornhill was owned by black people. And then they moved to the suburbs. So the white people came in, sandblasted the houses, and sold them and rented them out. You go over there, a studio is $2,000 in Cornhill area. I'm on a fixed income. I'm struggling with what I have now. So I'm asking the council to either step up or step down. Handicap. You guys don't even consider the handicap. You shut off the doors where we got to come up these stairs in order to get in the buildings now. You don't even consider the handicapped people that's around here. There's a lot of people that would be here, but they can't get into the buildings because they're non-handicap accessible.
Ma'am, there is a side entrance that is handicap accessible.
Yeah, but they told us we had to come in the front.
Yeah, the signs. We'll check into that.
Good evening. There's been so many eloquent connections made tonight, more so than I've ever heard, and I know that all of you understand them. You've read Dr. King, you've studied the issues, you understand these connections between local, national, international, and I just want to elevate that and appreciate all the people who are making connections with the no bid movement, with rent stabilization, with addressing corporate, subsidizing corporate developers and so on. Ricardo and I met when we were both volunteers for Poor People United, and tonight we're here both wearing keffiyeh, and that is not a stretch, that is directly related. I think that one of the main issues that you might be interested in is why, or some of the concerns that have been raised are around this being a local body addressing an international, national issue. And I'd like to speak to that, but first I would like to read a quote from just hours ago today from one of the last surgeons that is left in Nasser Hospital. As a nurse, I appealed to your humanity and your connections and your service. And I just want to read this quote from one of the last surgeons at Nasser Hospital a few hours ago. He said, "Yesterday also, Israeli snipers and Israeli quadcopters, which is a drone, carry on it an AR, and with a sniper, they shot all over the building. And they shot my colleague, Dr. Karam. He has a shrapnel inside his head. I can upload a CT for him. You can see it was superficial, nothing serious, but lots of bullets inside their bedroom and their restroom." And of course, a doctor, if you're paying attention to the media, was killed yesterday. Many patients were killed within the last 24 hours in Nasser Hospital. And this is part of a systematic approach to hospitals over and over and over again. Thanksgiving, Al-Shifa was destroyed. So I wanted to, as always, I'm a terrible public speaker. I didn't get to my point about why this is a policy issue that you all should be supporting. It's because, okay, I'll respect the end.
Joe Robinson from the East District, and will be followed by Leslie Reed.
Good evening, City Council. Pause, pause, pause. My numbers, 2023, $77,600. 2024, $123,000. A respected community advocate of mine came across the numbers in December, thought it was a mistake in the database, and only wanted to verify the data. He made several calls, and none of the calls were returned. I wonder why that was. Landlords, I'm hearing too many horror stories from landlords, owners, renters. Did I say homeowners? Yeah. I'm just hearing too many complaints, and a lot of that was already echoed, a lot of that being not enough people know what is going on. So they're going to get caught in the crunch. Number two, elderly and disabled people must have access to the Speak to Council meetings monthly. It is not a luxury, it is a necessity. I have not heard a good enough reason to not make it happen. So please make it happen. The next one, because I crossed my numbers out. Parking. Parking outside City Hall is still a problem. Faulty meters, city vehicles parked in the 15-minute spots with no flashers, exceeding the 15-minute time limit, and in my opinion, taking spots away from people that need to be in here on official business, like paying my water bill or my taxes. And what happens is, if I can't find a spot, I actually go back home, which is crazy, but that's what I do. Ooh. Okay, thank you. Crime, we still have numbers going down. We're showing numbers going down, but we are still under siege. Perhaps the disconnect is it's just not being reported. Thank you.
I want to thank Willie Lightfoot for all he does. I encourage everybody to do the way he does it because he makes us very comfortable when we have a problem. We need to do something about the communications, the implementations, and the way that this assessment is being done, because people are not aware, and it's coming up and it's biting them, and they're not ready for it. We have outsiders, developers that's able to come in and they're able to get all type of tax breaks and so forth like that. I've lived in Rochester all of my life. I've been to the service, and I've retired. I shouldn't have to be second fiddle to anybody else when it comes to outsiders. Insiders should be able to capitalize. I can even help you with a solution. At least let the people from this area be able to get part of some type of bond or something where they're able to grab some of the tax to hedge against all these increasing taxes. We just pay, and we're paying entirely too much. My assessment went up $40,000 last year alone. That is too much. I encourage y'all to do what it is that y'all have to do, but we will be watching, because if you won't do it for us, we'll find somebody that will. Thank you very much.
Bruce Mellon here. Margaret Horvath. Margaret Horvath is from the East District and will be followed by Sharon Taylor, but that's not her. Is Margaret Horvath here? No. Sharon Taylor. Sharon Taylor is from the East District and will be followed by Amanda Chestnut.
Thank you very much, City Council. This is my first time here. I'm not happy that I'm here because I'd like to know how a home on Peck Street could sell for $200,000. It was assessed last year just under 65, and now it's assessed at $180,000. My mom is a senior. She's on a fixed income. She had no idea about the assessment. I read her mail. My aunt, who lives on the same street, both of them did the Home Expo program, a city program where a brand new home could be built on a lot, affordable, nice home. So my aunt told me about the meeting. I went to this meeting and I got some information, met with the assessor. I did my due diligence. I contacted a realtor, give me some comps so I can go into this meeting. The assessor says, yeah, but your house was built in 1990. All of the other houses were built in the early 1900s. So there's no comps. There's nothing comparable to that. This is unfair. You guys really need to do a pause on this. This is sad. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. It is good to see you all this evening, your bright and shiny happy faces in this cold weather. I am hearing over and over again right now a whole lot of constituents who seem to be frustrated and disappointed and confused. And I'm sitting in my seat wondering, what I'm going to talk about because I'm here to speak against the Business Improvement District. But what I'm hearing is this continual overlap of your constituents who are coming up here to speak out against this rampant paternalism that has run roughshod over our city. Who runs Rochester?
Thank you.
Because right now, I am in a room full of people who are here to save their homes, to save their children from the city? From the city, we have to save ourselves. The city that we live in, the city that we fight for. We have to save ourselves? No. Who runs Rochester? Because right now, I'm hearing all of these voices saying they're not feeling in control. They're seeing developers in control. They're seeing out-of-state interests in control. And they're willing to vote for people who will put control back into their hands.
Jackie was ripped. Town of Tyler.
Thank you, council members. What I'm constantly hearing from leadership in the city is that small businesses are the backbone of our community and that we are proud to be the city of Frederick Douglass. And yet, there's a push by the most powerful property owners for Rochester to have a bid. Bids all over the country issue a mandatory tax that falls to tenants that often drive out residents and small business owners, as well as hire private security that would have a direct line to law enforcement, thereby increasing the harm towards Black and brown people, unhoused and disabled folks as well. What I'm asking for you to do is to completely reject this bid. What makes our city vibrant are its people, their talents, community leaders, and small business owners. Also, as Americans, we are complicit in the genocide, and I'm using that word specifically because that's what it is, especially by International Court of Justice standards, of the Palestinian people by the State of Israel. About $25 from each of us to continue to send military aid to the bombardment, displacement, and starvation of Palestinian people. Over 28,000, y'all. Civilians killed in Gaza. As our nation sat and watched the Super Bowl, Israel started its ground invasion in Rafah, a place that Palestinians were told to go to by Israel as a safe zone. There are no safe places in Gaza. What we're asking for is you to call an immediate and permanent ceasefire and unrestricted humanitarian aid to safety to enter Gaza, a return of Palestinians that have been displaced, an end to the apartheid and a lift of the blockade of Palestinian land by Israeli military forces, a zero-tolerance policy for anti-Palestinian racism. 48 cities in the United States, including Albany, have passed ceasefire resolutions. Y'all, it's time for Rochester to be on the right side of history. Thank you.
If your name is Jennifer Sherrill and I called you.
I came at number 9. I came on a city worker and I came right from work.
If you came at number 9, I called you at 7. I'm sorry.
So what's the remedy?
When we get to the end of the list, we'll go back.
Very good.
You're going to go to the
I got you.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Myers, M-Y-E-R-S. I'm a retired Rochester City School District teacher, as Mr. Patterson is or was. I am an active member of Emmanuel Baptist Church here in the city of Rochester. I'm a member of Rochester Witness for Palestine, and I'm a member of the National Jewish Voice for Peace. Our city is the city of Charles Grandison Finney, and Frederick Douglass and Susan B. Anthony, these progressive people that have made a big difference in our country. And now our city has a chance to be on the side of progressivism again and to continue the movement that's been going on, as we've heard, in many cities across the country, including Chicago, San Francisco, and our own capital city of Albany. If we don't call for a ceasefire, are more buildings going to be killed, more destroyed, more universities crushed, more houses of worship ruined, let alone the people, the children that are traumatized, that wet their beds at night? We don't see that. The babies that are maimed forever and have families that have to take care of them with their disabilities. I'm a Christian, as I said. I'm a member of a church here in the city, and I am here speaking because of my faith, my Christian faith, and because of scriptures that I share with Jewish people. Particularly this quote, the scripture I want to quote is Micah 6:8. Seek justice, love mercy. Amen. I'm asking that you, each one of you who is here that has a vote, whether you are of a certain religion or no religion, to do the moral thing and to vote now for ceasefire.
In the town of Victor.
Good evening. My name is Quinn Akoff, and I am here tonight to urge you to sign a ceasefire resolution. Sometimes I'll go out looking for a day's work when we have nothing to eat and I need to earn to support my siblings. But some of those times I come back without any money and they go to bed hungry. That is a quote from 14-year-old Muhammad, one of the 17,000 orphan children in Gaza. 11-year-old Doreen, who lost dozens of family members, including both her parents in an airstrike, said tearfully in an interview, "Why didn't I go with them? I really want to go to heaven and talk to them there. Why did this happen to me?" The reality of those in Gaza is beyond comprehension. People are forced to eat bread made from rabbit, chicken, and donkey feed. Infants dependent on formula and breast milk must now try to consume solids far before their intestines are ready. Dirty tent pieces are being used in place of sanitary products. More than 10 children a day are losing one or both of their legs. To live in Gaza is to live in constant fear. Fear of being starved, bombed, shot at, and assaulted. The other day, I saw a picture that continues to consume my every thought. The picture was of a beautiful 7-year-old girl named Sidra. Along with her family, Sidra had been taking shelter in Rafah when an Israeli airstrike hit the building they were in. Due to the power of the impact, Sidra flung to the wall. There she remained. Both her legs had blown off as her lifeless body dangled. Her story is just one of over 28,000 martyrs, each one with hobbies, hopes, dreams, and aspirations. These people are not numbers, and we need to do everything in our power to help those who are still alive. We need a permanent and immediate ceasefire. The United States has been enabling this genocide, and we must let them know that the City of Rochester stands with the people of Palestine. By signing a ceasefire resolution, we will join the stance for Palestine and against genocide. Ceasefire now. Thank you.
I am 17 years old, a high schooler, a child. I should be home enjoying my youth, but I cannot, because if I was born across the sea to a different set of parents who loved me just as much as mine do, I would be dead or displaced. My life as I know it would be over. As you might know, after World War II, in which massive quantities of Jewish people, along with Romani, disabled, queer, Sinti, and African people, among many other groups, were murdered and tortured by the Nazi regime, Israel became a nation. The issue is there were already people living in this area, known as British Palestine. After the division and colonial conquest of the Ottoman Empire, many Palestinians were forced to leave their traditional residencies and have their entire lives changed, often in violent ways. The citizens of Israel deserve to live unchallenged and to never face the disgusting persecution we saw ever again, but not at the expense of an entire territory of people and their homes and customs. Recently, an insurgent group in Palestine, Hamas, launched an attack on Israel in which they took hostages and laid out their demands for a free Palestine. In response, the Israeli government launched an assault on Palestine and the Gaza Strip, which has lasted for 4 months. This includes carpet bombing, ground assaults, and an occupation of the country. This has destroyed the Palestinian land and decimated the homes and lives of a people who have struggled for decades to be sovereign. Now, Israel is planning a ground assault on Rafah, an area on the southern side of the Strip that the IDF shuttled civilians to when the attack first began. Now this refugee camp holds 1 million human souls, terrified of the massacre on the horizon. Right now, thousands are suffering among the Gaza Strip and in Gaza, in Rafah. Palestinian people are just like you and I. Nearly half of Gaza's population is children. Around 10,000 of those children have been murdered through the bombings and Israel Defense Force attacks. Since the 7th, the death toll in the Strip has reached 28,000. This is nearly triple the population of the city that I live in. Call for a ceasefire now.
Delphi, followed by Kathleen Magnolo.
Talia Delphi. Can everybody hear me? I firstly just want to acknowledge the sheer insanity of this moment. Nothing in the dystopian novels we read in high school could prepare us for the dystopian reality of our leaders denying, justifying, and excusing a genocide we watch unfold in real time on our screens. To the press, Biden feigns concern over the civilian population and infrastructure that has already been blown nearly a century into the past, while in the same breath promising more aid and ammunition to Israel. It should be terrifying to every person in the world that the international court system has been unable or unwilling to stop the West from what they have deemed a plausible genocide. It should be terrifying to every American that our government, that claims to defend freedom, liberty, and justice, rips away humanitarian aid meant for Gaza while supplying 2,000-pound bombs to be dropped on civilian safe routes instead. There isn't a word in English to describe the profound and unspeakable evil with which IDF targets men, women, and children they have assured safe passage to during rescue attempts or efforts to receive humanitarian aid. Children receiving amputations without anesthetic, mothers giving birth and even having C-sections performed without medicine or equipment, grinding up animal feed to eat because there's no more food, orphaned, maimed, and murdered children, numbering in the tens of thousands. There isn't a single word I could come up with to describe the utter horror I'm expected to shut up and pay for with my tax dollars. More and more, doing what's right is coming down to supporting the most basic human rights to life and liberty our country has always claimed to defend. Watching our government unflinchingly support and aid the most brutal occupation and now merciless decimation of the Palestinian people must unify us as humans in our responsibility to act. We have signed petitions and attended protests, but the only way for us to put legitimate pressure on our leaders is for you to pass a resolution for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. Palestinian life is not a foreign policy issue. This is a human catastrophe, and this trauma will be felt globally for generations to come. Those who have somehow survived the most unimaginable hell on earth for 4 months are still facing starvation, dehydration, injury, illness, and displacement. Rest assured, our lawmakers will not have peace until Palestine does.
Followed by Natasha Rivera.
Good evening. It's not lost on me the connection between what's going on here in Rochester and what's going on in Palestine. I've been listening. It's been an honor to witness everybody who's spoken tonight. It is appalling that we are limited to deliberating in forums such as these and in protests in a country whose ideology rests on liberty and justice for all, the need for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, humanitarian aid yesterday, and an end to the occupation in Palestine. It is disturbing, yet not surprising, to witness the blatant misuse of power and resource of the United States government to aid in Israel in enacting genocide on the people of Palestine, especially when, as a people, we have shown up in droves and cried out against the atrocities. And it would behoove us as a people to take action now, lest the power of the state be turned on all of us at any time. Stop Cop City. It seems to me That protocol and legislation has dampened our moral sensibilities and blocked a path of actual actionable movement to resist the cruelty of the State of Israel on the Palestinian people. On the contrary, the U.S. government and Biden administration have funded the military efforts of the State of Israel with our money, tens of billions of dollars that could, and I dare say should, be used to resource and restore the people who have suffered so much and for too long in Gaza, and to resource and restore the people here on Turtle Island who are in need of food, health care, shelter, and education. I speak from the heart of a mother and the knowing that all children are our children. I demand an immediate and permanent ceasefire on the State of Israel, and that they are held accountable for their crimes. I demand the U.S. government stop funding genocide with our money, and it's time we conductively consider a reformation of our political system, starting with the office of president being replaced with a council of diverse elders.
Natasha Rivera here. Steve Filano. Albert Algarin. Julie Gelfand. Julie Gelfand of the town of Brighton, and will be followed by Travis Horace.
I'm speaking for all those people who just didn't show up. I grew up in a socially conscious Jewish family, guided by my ancestors who devoted their lives working for equality and peace. And so I'm here now, and I need to say that I've actually, in light of the current events, never felt more Jewish than I do now. So tonight, rather than repeat words spoken here by other people at this podium so eloquently, I'm going to honor those who have no voices anymore, those people who've been silenced, and those people meaning those children. I've brought gifts for everybody, for all of the board, for all of the council. Stanley already has one. I'm going to give the rest of them out when I'm done speaking. These are pins to remember the 12,000 Palestinian children who were murdered by Israeli missiles and guns. Each pin contains the name of one of those children. I've got a lot more to make. And each of those children are here to speak to you today in my voice. Each pin contains the name of one child and their age on the day that they were when they were murdered. But they didn't die alone. Each of them, I particularly chose these children because each of them had many, many siblings, other family members, cousins, parents, aunts, their parents, grandparents, uncles. They all died together. And so when you see the name on this pin, that child is representing a large group of people who they loved and who are now gone. I don't give these pins out lightly. To take one of these pins is a pledge. And so if you're not going to do this, don't take a pin from me. And then I'll know also where each of the board members are. What we need is for you to speak out every day for these children who can no longer speak out. Really, here's your pins. I'm going to give them out now.
Is Travis Horace here?
I live in Webster. I work 2 jobs in Rochester, one of which is at a small business, and I spend a lot of my time and money in Rochester. I speak here fundamentally against a business improvement district. I hear the concerns about public safety and sanitation, but giving tax dollars to a private collective is not the answer. I worry about the creation of a private security force maintaining public space, especially given the failings of our public police as was seen in the shooting of Todd Novick. Even if the bid allows small business owners to come to the table, it is inherently going to be biased towards individuals and corporations who own more land. Moving here from Arizona, The plethora of small businesses are something I really value about Rochester. It is my love for my found home and neighbors here that also motivates me to request a pause in property reassessment and a housing vacancy study so that we may have rent control again. Housing is a human right. It is a human right in Rochester, and it is a human right in Gaza. So I will speak on a potential resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. I am an American Jew and a part-time member of Temple Emmanuel. I am also a member of Jewish Voice for Peace Rochester, and I find it morally reprehensible that journalists, healthcare workers, and thousands of children are killed with the excuse that American Jews need to be protected from the tears of grieving Palestinians. We have seen that Netanyahu does not care what the world thinks. He sees all Palestinians as enemies. American tax dollars and weapons are being sent to him with no limits on how they are used. Every day without a ceasefire, countless lives are lost. So Rochester City Council must say, ceasefire now.
Judy King. Town from Spencerport, and will be followed by Brooklyn Bianchi.
Hello, my name's Judy, and I am a member of the Rochester Hebron Friendship Project. Tonight, I am asking for Rochester City Council to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. After hearing the excellent speakers tonight, everyone should be fully aware that Gaza is experiencing unprecedented death and suffering, infrastructure damage, and it's also suffering an environmental catastrophe, the likes of which will be felt for decades, and the climate costs are immeasurable. I would like to read from a statement today that was given by a displaced Gazan. Today, when I woke up and stepped out of the tent, I found a little child, 6 years old, sleeping under a truck in the street. I woke him up and asked him why he was sleeping there. He said, "My whole family was martyred in Rafah, and I came under the truck so that no one would see me and run me over, and I could go to my family." Sadly, this young, innocent child has now passed from the severe cold. There are approximately 68,000 Gazans injured. Over 28,600 have been killed, and more than 12,000 of whom are children. That is the equivalent of half of the entire Rochester City School District. Over 80% of the population of Gaza has been displaced, living without bathrooms, clean water, food, shelter, not knowing what their future holds, or even if they have one. Healthcare workers, while themselves starving, are functioning nonstop under fire without proper medical supplies, having to operate without any anesthetic. So what would a ceasefire do? It would put a stop to unlawful attacks, halt the mounting death toll in Gaza, enable aid agencies to get water and medical supplies into the Strip to address the staggering levels of human suffering. It will allow hospitals to receive medicines, fuel, and equipment they desperately need, and to help them repair damaged facilities. Nowhere in Gaza is safe.
Brooklyn Bianchi. Abdullahi Sued.
Respected members of the council, and more importantly, the citizens of Rochester. Rochester's commitment to human rights extends beyond our neighborhoods and our daily lives. We interact with Palestinians everywhere we go. They are a part of this community and many other communities in the U.S., and it is so unfair to watch people all over the world just watch in silence as our brothers and sisters in humanity, if not in any other way, suffer and have their kids killed while we have our kids fed and they go to bed with us. That is so unfair, and as a person who has seen war, I believe that I will not be funding war, or none of us should. So Rochester should be getting behind the people that want to be in the right side of history. So let's make it known that we do not want to support genocides, not by force, not by choice. Genocides are not something that only affects the people that it's happening to. It's something that we are causing to our human race. So say no to genocide, and let's call for a ceasefire in Palestine. A ceasefire saves lives by the hour, and I never thought in my whole life that I would be asking someone who is a human to save another human life, let alone begging. Human life should mean more to us than what we see right now. We really need to ask for a ceasefire. So I ask for a ceasefire today. So are the residents of Rochester. And we need to stop funding Palestine and use the money that we are using to fund Palestine to fix our communities, like in Rochester. All night I sat here and I heard stories after stories of people wanting things done, but well, we fund a genocide. So ceasefire now.
Amy D'Amico? Is Amy D'Amico here? Barbara McMinn? And Tom Henrietta, and she'll be followed by Kevin McMinn.
I would like to speak tonight about the problem I feel with the current assessment that is being proposed. I feel that it's necessary to pause so that we can do more to inform the public as to what is happening. And I also would like to challenge the people in the council to take a look at some of these assessments and possibly do an independent assessment of these homes to see what they feel is really going on. And I feel it is much easier to stop a problem than to have to deal with the aftermath. This is going to cause a lot more problems with homelessness and high rents, and we already have huge issues with this in the city of Rochester. I have been attending all the has been hosting, and I have learned a lot about this, and I've learned that there are a lot of people that are hurting, a lot of people are afraid they're going to lose their homes, and this is something that I feel that we really can't tolerate. I feel that the council really needs to take a look at this and look at what's happening. I think it is really a mistake to assume that these assessments are right, and that's why I feel that they need to be looked at. And when you see the huge, huge increases, you just wonder what is going on, what is happening here. And I really feel that it would be wonderful if the people in this council could show some courage and support Councilman Willie Lightfoot in supporting this pause. And I did hear the mayor speak today about how he was raised. He was raised to say God is first, people are second, and money is third. We need to show that we have the people of Rochester in our care, and that we need to show him that people are more important than money. Please support the pause.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about a flawed system. Let's hire a bunch of people, we'll reassess everything. Then we'll send out fake bills, because they can't be real bills because they're not the real price. That's a system that's gonna fail, because now you got lots of questions. It's not hard to figure out, they're just trying to confuse everybody. I said, it's time to pause. Pause this now. We need a pause. You can't have homeless people. You have too many homeless people now. What are you trying to do? Multiply tent city? That's not right either. Because with tent city, you get crime, you get drugs. We can't have any more drugs, illegal drugs. We can't have any more crime. We're overloaded with it now. It's gotta stop. We gotta start with a pause, and pause today. We can't wait for tomorrow. We gotta do it today. Thank you.
Michael Toon. James Harris. Jennifer Sherilyn,
Yes.
Sierra Grayson, Rufus Jones, Geraldo Wilcox,
Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Geraldo Wilcox, and I am coming about the city assessment. Back in 2023, my house was assessed at $38,000. Oh, okay. Back in 2023, my house was assessed at $38,000. The proposed amount today is $101,900. That is a $63,000 increase. Also proposed was my taxes being increased to $481. I am coming to you as a constituent and as a citizen of a lifelong citizen of Rochester, New York. Please, I implore you to get the mayor's ear. For him to come out and say that this is not a viable plan really hurts me, because it tells me that he's not listening. Okay, he's not listening. And he also, his father would be ashamed, because there is no way that he has compromised. He's not trying to come up with a solution. All he's doing is saying a flat out no, and he's not listening to his constituents. And I ask that a pause be put on the assessment.
Douglas Holy, Linda Bauer, Joseph Dean, Marcia Steger, Alberta Peterson, Sunshine Jacobs, Brian A. Cup, Carlos Santana, Maggie Kane, Todd Singletary, Melton Octumtimer, Larry Lane, Agape Towns, Jonathan Ayala, Bruce Mellon, Margaret Horvath, Natasha Rivera, Steve Filano, Albert Algarin,
Somebody with Steve?
Steve?
you're Steve?
Well, I would just like to, I have a minute that I wrote. Can I?
He's not Steve. You're not Steve.
I'm not Steve, but I have a minute that I wrote. It's very
Brooklyn
important that I
Bianchi.
say this.
Is there a Brooklyn beyond you? Amy D'Amico.
So,
Those are all the names that I have. So those are
there
all
was a
the
mistake. I wrote a speech. I took a long time to write the speech. There was a
I'm
mistake.
sorry.
Are you going to tell us that we can't speak, or can I just say it? You're going to tell us that we can't speak?
You have to sign up your name.
I understand there's a process, but it's the spirit of the city council in public forum that I think should be met. Well, if you want to repress the residents, then we don't have to have as much vote for the city.